Hi, this is a video tour of a bike collection which I just acquired. The whole thing. I bought everything. It's mostly 90s mountain bikes, but everything is very cool. So we'll start with this one. It's going to be a longer video, but interesting. It's a carbon fiber road bike, I believe 58 centimeters. It's got a new carbon seat. I've got a lot of work to do with all these bikes. I'm going to upgrade the tires on this and upgrade the bar tape and the housings, cables on that one, pedals, of course. Everything is for sale. Don't know the pricing yet because I've got to do a bunch of work on it. This is a carbon road bike from the 90s, Trek OCLV. That's carbon. A couple of dings on it, but front shock doesn't work, back shock doesn't work. So I've got to replace those. But that's a really cool old style mountain bike. This is probably the best of the collection. Not sure if I'm going to sell it, but it's a classic Klein aluminum mountain bike. High end at the time, 90s. Won a bunch of mountain bike races. Kind of dominated the races until really good carbon came along. Tubes are a little fatter, and that was Klein did that to make it a little more stiff. And I don't know if you can tell the paint job, that's not a sun issue, that's a fade that Klein is very famous for. That fade in the paint from light to dark. That's what makes this bike quite expensive. Klein's no longer in business. Trek bought them and ran them in the dirt. But this is before Trek may have owned them at the time, but these welds are nice and finished. That's how you can tell if it's a really nice Klein bike. This one's a GT. We're gonna have a lot of GTs in this collection. Love GTs because they're in the 90s, not so much now. Now GTs are not a very good brand, but back then, so GT was just known for this triangle. And so you could tell a GT bike from a mile away because it always had that triangle. Whereas other bikes, there's no triangle back there. It's just straight. So classic GT. This one's a little bit tricked out with some purple. Not sure if I'm going to keep that. Definitely swap out the seat. Not sure what I'm going to do with the front end yet, but awesome steel. These are all probably made in the USA. Now we got Schwinn Predators. I got two of them. These are classic 80s BMX bikes. These are probably worth a good bit more than a lot of the other bikes because they're just old school 1980s BMX bikes. I think that one may be a little older. This one might be a little bit newer. This one looks a little nicer. Actually got a chain guard. Interesting. So same model. Two brakes on this one. We've got two twins, Gary Fisher. So Gary Fisher is a great brand. Trek bought him again and then ran him in the ground, and it's no longer a brand name. These are Katais or Katai. I think that's the model name. This one's a little bit smaller frame. That one's a tiny bit bigger, maybe an inch bigger. But just your classic mountain bikes, rock shock, front shocks, they both work. Those are really awesome shocks. Bull horns are definitely a 90s thing. I'll probably take those off unless somebody wants to keep them. Definitely replacing saddles. Tires don't look very good on that one. Probably replace those. Again, the bull horns here, but these are just classic, really beautiful Gary Fishers. Now we're moving on to a full suspension Giant. Classic 90s full suspension. This lasted for several years. The issue with these style of bikes is that depending on where the seat post is and you hit a bump, you're jamming the seat post into the frame. So it's kind of a downfall of this style. So these are just collector items. I wouldn't necessarily run them on trails, but definitely very comfortable and very cool. This is a Diamondback Response. This was a mountain bike. It's been tricked out a little bit with some special cool bigger tires, cool looking seat, and the front end was replaced with a BMX style front end. So, and I have matching grips for the tires. This is going to be really nice, really going to be a pretty bike when I finish with it. This is probably the only one that's not a 90s bike. This is probably 2000s. It has been tricked out a little bit. The front end was changed, more of a BMX style handlebars. Looks pretty cool, a little bit more upright feel for the rider. So definitely got some, I can see this, got some work to do on that one as well. Another classic full suspension Trek. This one's aluminum, not carbon. The Y3, very popular, very common, made in the USA, up in Wisconsin. These are just really cool bikes. But again, you got the issue of the seat post going into the frame. So you have to either cut the seat post or be of a certain height. So I'm going to do some modifications to make sure that doesn't happen with that one. Cannondale. I think this one is from the 2000s. It's probably newer as well. Disc brakes, so kind of earlier disc brakes on both front and back. Really cool. So this kind of Cannondale's single front suspension shock. Got to replace that. And again, bull horns. Not sure what I'm going to do with those. But that one's a really nice bike. Another full suspension. It's a Specialized, very 90s color scheme. Again, just totally cool. Shocks work both front and back. That's just going to be a nice riding bike for somebody. Specialized hard rocks, very, very common in the 90s. This one's been a little tricked out with some balloon tires, bigger tires. They look really nice. I'm going to change that saddle, obviously. And again, somebody tricked it out a little bit with some BMX cockpit there with the handlebars. So that one looks really nice, and it's in a beautiful condition. Another GT, there's that triangle again, the GT triangle. This is a Tolera. I've never seen this model. Very cool looking, definitely going to change the saddle. Front end's all original. This is pretty much original. So this is just going to be a nice riding bike for somebody. This one, now this one's a great, a little bit different design, but still very 90s. Full suspension, everything works. I've got to do a couple little things with it. That's just, you know, it's like brand new. I'm not sure how much it was ever ridden. But really, really beautiful bike. Now we're going to go past the landscaping here. This one's interesting. So this is a soft ride. I'm going to get on the other side. The sun. So Soft Ride had this, it was a 90s thing where this is all carbon and the seat was here. You could move the seat kind of wherever you wanted for different sizing and feel, and it was a suspension, and it just looks like it's going to break, and I think that's probably why it didn't really catch on. But these are really interesting bikes. I haven't ridden it yet, but I'm going to ride it this afternoon. And you've got a little front suspension on the handlebars. So that's just a really interesting bike. Not sure, you know, its value as a riding bike, but definitely very, very collectible. There's another GT, full suspension, different design. So they were, you know, that was probably after the seat post, and they said, well, maybe we'll put it on the rear end there. So very interesting. The 90s were just full of interesting bike building techniques, and it was just an era of, hey, let's try this and see how it works. And then some things would go very well and some things didn't go very well. Disc brakes obviously went very well, but this one works. I believe the shock works. Let's see. Yep, rear shock works. That's going to be an awesome bike. Another GT. There's that triangle again. Nice looking Timberline classic. Not much has changed with that one. I'm just going to modernize it a little bit. Grips and saddle. Probably take off the carrier there. Here's a classic Specialized Hard Rock women's edition, or more of a step through edition. So makes it easier to get on and off. Definitely that saddle doesn't really match that bike. Probably take that off. But beautiful condition. Beautiful condition. And the last one, which I'm not too thrilled about, but it's a nice little Schwinn cruiser. It's probably the least valuable one here. It's just a little 3-speed Schwinn cruiser, classic, probably 1960s, 70s, something like that. So that's my tour. I bought them all at once from a collector who had passed away, and so I took the whole collection. Everything's for sale. Drop me a note. Bye.